On the AOL keyword, CNN, just click on questions under the resources tab, fill in your question, and then it will get to us, and watch for the answer right here on CNN as we continue our coverage. Back to Paula in New York.
Thanks so much, Miles. I wanted to show you a picture now of what the rescue efforts look like at this hour. I mentioned earlier on those efforts were suspended for a short time in the middle of the night after some severe thunderstorms rolled through here. Obviously, great concern that these high cranes that are being used in these efforts would make some powerful lightning rods. But the painstaking process is back on at a time when the mayor of this city is confirming that some 90 bomb threats were reported in the city, all over the city yesterday, all of them false. Schools back open here today. The markets, of course, major markets closed today, expected to open again on Monday. All of the major airports here closed again today. The president, of course, expecting to arrive after the national prayer service that will be conducted at the National Cathedral in Washington. I wanted to show you some pictures now of how Europeans are observing what the president has called for today, a day of prayer and remembrance. This is the cathedral you might remember where Princess Diana and Prince Charles were married. I am told the cathedral was absolutely packed. This is the kind of support you're seeing all over Europe this morning. There have been prayer services in Croatia and Albania. And at one point early this morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, New York, citizens of most Eastern and Western European nations observed 3 minutes of silence to honor the many innocent victims of these multiple terrorist attacks. Let's pause for a moment. This will be a scene repeated throughout the world today. At noon here in the United States, you can expect to hear a pealing of church bells from coast to coast. The president has asked Americans to leave their jobs at noon to try to get to their places of worship, whether it's a mosque, a synagogue, a church, to show support for the many thousands of people missing and those that we know are dead. One of the companies we expect to be most affected by all this is the Cantor Fitzgerald firm. This is a firm that was involved with bond trading. We know that 1,000 of the 2,300 people that work for the firm were on the top 4 floors of one of those World Trade Center towers. It appears now that the group may have lost hundreds of employees in Tuesday's attacks. Peter Viles, one of our correspondents, is taking a look now at the desperate search for survivors and talking about the horror that many families are experiencing this morning as they deal with the cold, harsh reality of what has been handed them. Let's listen.
It is the saddest vigil you can imagine. Scott Hazelcorn's parents.
It's not even revenge. I mean, I just want to hear my son's voice.
Members of Jun Koo Kang's church.
We all pray every night.
John Perconti's wife, expecting their child in December.
He called me at 10 to 9 and said, our building has just been hit by a plane, turn on the news. And I changed the channel and I saw what happened. And I said, oh God, John, please get out of there safely. And he said, I love you, I have to go.
What links these stories is that all the missing worked at Cantor Fitzgerald, all above the 100th floor of the North Tower, the first one hit. Cantor is not a glamorous firm, but it is crucial, one of the world's largest bond trading firms. 1,000 people worked up there, fewer than 300 are accounted for, but it is not clear any of those now safe were on the top floors Tuesday morning.
I don't think anybody got out at this point, but we pray for miracles.
Scott Hazelcorn's parents suspect that their son did not run for his life.
He didn't care about himself. He only cared about
We said
his friends.
if Scott was there and he was getting out, he'd probably help everybody out in front of him. That's the kind of kid he was.
They gather at a city-designated center for relatives of the missing on 26th Street, where trees have become pleas for help. And further uptown at the Pierre Hotel, a gathering site for Cantor Fitzgerald families.
I don't think the company has the information that we need. I think they're sharing everything they know, but we have not heard of one survivor. We've not been able to validate any stories that we've heard.
There are official clearinghouses for information on the missing, and Cantor Fitzgerald is using them. But these friends and family members are convinced that any extra effort they can make on behalf of their loved ones is worth making. Peter Weil, CNN Financial News, New York.
Across the country, Americans are finding ways to express their grief and their support for the victims of Tuesday's attack. Crowds turned out in Brooklyn last night for a candlelight vigil for the victims. Chicago showed its support by lighting up the Merchandise Mart in red, white, and blue. A Red Cross blood drive is scheduled to begin there in just a couple of hours. The cast of the hit Broadway musical The Producers made a curtain call to the tune of God Bless America last night. The performance was dedicated to those who died in the attack and their loved ones. Theaters on Broadway dimmed their marquees in honor of the victims. As we bring you images from across America this morning on how we are all coping with this tragedy, we'd like to stop now and show you those at the heart of the rescue operation. It reminds us that we are all affected.
Just a reminder that, of course, we will be covering that prayer service at the National Cathedral live. The president will be there. After that is over, he will come here to New York, where he will meet with a number of paramedics and other rescue workers who are working around the clock in hopes of finding people who are still trapped alive in the wreckage of what is left of the World Trade Centers. Very quickly here, I want to bring you up to date on some of the latest developments. Here is what we know at this hour. At the Pentagon, both flight data recorders, or so-called black boxes from the hijacked plane, have been found. In the search for those responsible for the attacks, the U.S. Coast Guard detains 2 people aboard a Carnival Cruise Line ship off the coast of Miami. The detainees have, quote, a history of hijacking. Also earlier today, sources tell us the White House and Congress struck a deal on a $40 billion emergency aid package for New York and Virginia. That is twice what the president had asked for. The president saying, no, he will spend what it takes to help the folks that were hurt very deeply in these attacks, and the world grieves with the U.S. this morning. Europeans have observed 3 minutes of silence for the victims. Today, the U.S. comes together, as we mentioned earlier on, for a day of prayer and remembrance. More on that a little bit later on. We would like now to correct a report that appeared on CNN based on information from multiple law enforcement sources. CNN reported that Adnan Bukhari and Amir Bukhari of Vero Beach, Florida, were suspected to be 2 of the pilots who crashed planes in the World Trade Center. Well, CNN later learned that Adnan Bukhari is still in Florida, where he was questioned by the FBI. We are sorry for that misinformation. A federal law enforcement source now tells CNN that Bukhari passed an FBI polygraph and is not considered a suspect. Through his attorney, Bukhari says that he is helping authorities. Amir Bukhari died in a small plane crash earlier this year, or actually last year. Miles, before I hand this completely over to you, I wanted to share with you a little piece of information we've just learned, and it's positive. Miles, did you see that piece on the horrible toll this has taken of the Cantor Fitzgerald Bond Company?
I did.
Yeah, we have just learned that Morgan Stanley had the largest number of employees, we think, employed in that building, and at this hour, fewer than 50 are missing. And one of the more poignant twists of this story, the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, Howard Lutnick, he was the man who was expected to find out that several hundred of his workers are missing, actually survived these attacks. He was walking into the door of the building as the jet hit the second tower, arriving late for work because he had taken his son to school that day. His brother is among those missing.
So many stories of fateful decisions, you know, a few footsteps away from disaster. And we invite for those of you out there who have missing friends or family members and who are desperate to learn more, to send your pictures to us. Missing@cnn.com is the address, and we're going to get those posted on the internet so that those pictures can be shared. There are websites out there as well where this information is being shared. And of course, there are hotlines available in New York, lists at the Armory available as New York tries to piece together what is obviously a very foggy situation, even now on day 4. Elizabeth Cohen, our CNN medical correspondent, is here, is with us now. She is at that Armory in Manhattan, or was at that Armory yesterday. And let's bring her story to you now.
And I have here with me Vinny Kamaj, whose father, Rocco, was in the World Trade Center. And can you tell me where he worked and when your family last heard from him?
My father was a window washer on Tower 2, the observation deck. He worked the rig outside. He last called us at 9:15 a.m. from the 105th floor, where he said there was 200 to 300 people just on that floor waiting for them to be told to head down.
And did he say that he was heading down, or did he feel safe?
He said, don't panic, to my mom. He said, don't get upset. Tell my kids I'm going to be okay, not to worry about it. I'm in God's hands. We're all going to be okay, don't worry.
And tell me why today you're distributing these flyers.
This morning, my mom woke me up early telling me that his name was on one of the survivor lists on an internet web page, and that our best information. We can get the best information from the building behind us, the armory.
And what happened when you went into the armory here?
I have a case number. I looked it up to see if